Hello, and welcome to Hopeful Conversations, brought to you by Robbie's Hope Foundation. I am your host, Kari Eckert. Joining me today is Magdalene Romer, or Mags for short. Mags is the Junior Board Chair for Paws for Patrick, a nonprofit organization dedicated to connecting young people to emotional support animals and therapy dogs to aid them as they live with mental illness. Paws for Patrick was created to honor the memory of Patrick Romer, Meg's brother, who died by suicide in May of 2020. Megs is currently a freshman at Wake Forest University. Megs, thank you so much for joining us today on Hopeful Conversations.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Could you give me a brief background on Paws for Patrick and why your nonprofit works with emotional support animals specifically?
So way back when, in May of 2020, in the moments of Patrick's passing, honestly, my mom talked to me and she was like, I want to do something. I want to make a difference. And our town had just created a GoFundMe, and we were like, we need to do something. We want to do something. And initially we thought we'll just pay for people's therapy. And then we realized, okay, well, Patrick hated going to therapy, and, many kids do. That's just the way things are and the big part of the stigma. But something Patrick always loved, one of his biggest passions and just greatest loves in this world, were dogs and all animals. So we found a way to connect helping those living with mental illness and animals together. And so that's how we kind of came up with the idea and put it all together.
Very cool. And you were just 15 at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And on your website, Patrick's dog that he loved so much was Cece? Yes. Was Cece a part of your family for a long time?
Unfortunately, she was not. So 5 years prior, about 6 years prior to Patrick's passing, my mom, dad, and Patrick dropped my oldest brother, Ben, and I off with our grandpa because we were going up north for the weekend, and Patrick had like a wrestling thing or something. And on their way back, they passed this little like puppy fair on the side of the street, just like totally random in a parking lot. And my parents had absolutely no intention of getting an animal. I mean, like, they always say no, always. But they pulled over and Patrick picked up this puppy, and my parents just saw the biggest smile in the world on his face, and they hadn't seen it in so long. So we're like, oh, fine, we're getting this dog. They brought it home. They had an amazing time together, but then in August of 2020, the day before Patrick's first day of senior year, she was 5 years old, and she got so sick out of nowhere and just suddenly within like 24 hours passed away. And that was horrible. Yeah. But the 5 years they had together were amazing.
Awesome. Can you talk about the positive feedback and results you've seen by providing young people with ESA? Maybe we should just define ESA.
Yeah. So ESA stands for Emotional Support Animals. And that's really just any animal that provides emotional support to someone. So you really don't, like, the animal needs no training whatsoever. All you need is to get a letter that proves that, like, you are in need of emotional support for some reason. And then really, like, it's just your connection with the animal. Like, you don't need it to get trained or anything. It's all it does is, like, this animal, it could literally be a snake. We've done a snake, actually.
Have
snake,
you?
A dog, a cat, yeah. Birds are kind of popular, but that animal provides you emotional support, and that's all it is. Yeah.
What's the process to get the, like, certification, or I would imagine a therapist or something has to get the note that says, yes, this individual needs an ESA?
So with our organization, you just go and fill out the form on our website, and it asks you like what you need in regards to, like, if you don't have an animal and you're looking for an animal. But in this case, if you're just looking for the letter or that's what you need, we have therapists that will meet with you. And once they get the sense and understanding that you do have some sort of reason or need for an animal that provides you with emotional support, or you have an animal already that is significantly critically like providing you that emotional support, that's what the certification is.
Okay. Are there any cases in particular with Paws for Patrick that really stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, so many, but
Hard to pick one.
yeah, I'll pick one. There was this panel I spoke in a couple years back, and I totally was having a hard time just, talking about my brother and everything. And I was talking about Paws, and this one girl raised her hand at the end to ask a question. But she was like, my sister is so-and-so, and it was actually her second ESA recipient ever. And I just want to thank you guys so much, because there is no way she could have gone to school without her dog. And like, that is what got her to college. And that is why she's able to be there growing and learning and continuing her education in life. And just like hearing that while having just such a like difficult time, and hearing those stories where it's like, this is actually doing something, and like this is helping people continue to live their lives, is so amazing. And there's been so many examples like that.
Awesome. You're a new freshman away many miles from home. Do you still have animals at home?
So my parents actually moved to Greensboro, North Carolina over the summer. Okay. So I'm only 40 minutes from home now, but we have 2 dogs and a cat, and I honestly went home last weekend just to see my dogs.
Has it been an adjustment to be away from them?
It definitely has been, yeah. I always think I have a cat. She's mine, and she's not, we don't have a certification, but she's pretty much my ESA. And I always think like, would I be feeling better if like Kitty was lying on my feet right now? The answer is almost always yes. So maybe she'll be joining me someday.
Meg, what is the name of your cat?
Her name is Kitty.
Oh my goodness. My daughter and Robbie had our first cat was named Kitty. It was the most beautiful cat. Oh my gosh. And Kitty's not with us anymore, but Kitty kind of was more like a dog in personality than a cat, and just like always greeted us at the door. And I can think of pictures of Robbie holding Kitty and of our daughter Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to share this quote. I found it on your website, and I just think it's so cool. You smile. I think you know what quote I'm going to say. What a beautiful world it would be if people had hearts like dogs. And the author is unknown.
Yeah, something about unconditional love.
Yeah, always there to greet you. Always happy. Oh, some animals can be a little sassy with you if they've been alone for too long,
But at the end of the day, they're the ones that are always there for you and loving you and helping you to feel loved.
Awesome. My next question, this kind of leads right into it. Would you say there's a distinct difference between the company of a person versus the company of an animal?
100%. I think that when you're with an animal, you don't feel pressure to be like giving yourself. You might just be exhausted or burnt out or tired, and you just need someone, but really the someone is a dog or a cat or an animal, to be there with you and just be present with you. I have a really good friend. She actually goes here, and she met a cat on the street the other day and brought the cat back with her. And she's been living with a roommate, but she told me a few days ago, she was like, I haven't felt this loved in so long from that cat, that she is like totally moving around her living arrangements because of the amount of love she felt from just being with that cat, as opposed to living with people. It's such a different feeling.
It certainly is. one of our dogs, after Robbie passed away, it was like, the dog like just knew like that something, it's so intuitive, and like his personality changed so much. Like when we were raising our kids, Robbie and Elizabeth, this dog was a little sassy and kind of a little mean. Elizabeth will still talk about like, my friends were afraid of his name was Digit. And after Robbie passed, like Digit became the sweetest dog. And he was like, he sat with like everybody that came to our house. I'm sure you can remember what it was like in the first few weeks after Patrick passed. Like it's hard, but the companionship that this little dog offered to strangers and friends and to us, it's still in October, it'll be 5 years since Robbie passed, and I still can just remember his sense. And can you think of that?
No, I often tell people like those animals, they're what got us through those first few weeks. I mean, I cannot imagine like coming home always in those first few weeks is just the most painful experience, waking up, coming home, and then being greeted by your dog or having your cat come to cuddle with you just is like your little light in the day that is getting you through.
Awesome. What are some of the most common misconceptions or misunderstandings people have about ESAs and their role in mental health treatment?
That's a really good question. I think that I would say people don't really understand the process that much. I think that people think an ESA has to be some like specifically trained and like just high intensity training, kind of like a service dog. But it's so easy. And the only requirement is that this animal provides you with emotional support. It doesn't need to be a service dog that is specially trained to do this or do that. But all this animal needs to do is provide you with emotional support. And there's so many people who probably have ESAs, unofficial ESAs. I mean, I'd say honestly, every person's pet is their unofficial ESA.
Your website does a really nice job of describing the difference between a service animal and ESA. And then there's a third category that I'm
dogs.
Therapy dogs. Oh, like a dog that someone would bring to help someone else, like maybe bring to Children's Hospital or bring to a assisted living facility or something like that to bring happiness to other people. Is that fair?
Yes. A lot of people get ESAs and therapy dogs mixed up a lot, but that was you did great. No one ever knows, but that was awesome.
I am an animal lover, and I think, I don't know. So now I have 3 dogs. So I guess we've had 4 in the last like 15 years. And like, I want to share their love with other people, like in their personalities. And sadly, I don't have the time right now I think one of my dogs would be a great therapy dog to other people because he's small and his love is just so prevalent. Oh, okay. So moving on to another question. It's fun to talk with you because I just love animals, so it's hard to like stick to
it. I love talking about this stuff. Like I look forward to it. I love talking about mental health and animals, like 2 of my passions.
You just shared with me that you're thinking like doing this long term as are you 19? Are you 18?
I'm 18 and 18. I have had no idea what I want to do, but like, I love this, so why would I stop? So.
Right. And what did I tell you about being 18 and not really knowing what you wanted to do?
It's exactly where you're meant to be.
But it's okay. Like, because we will have a lot of young listeners, and I think the pressure of being a freshman in college or being a senior like Patrick was, or a sophomore like Robbie was, the pressure to have things figured out on your generation is so big, and it's okay to be where you are right now.
Yeah, it all works out. You're exactly where you're meant to be, and you just need to keep reminding yourself that, and everything works its way out, works its way around.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Yeah.
Okay, so emotional. I'm going to go back to my questions now, Megs. Emotional support animals aren't a one-size-fits-all solution. how do you guide individuals in choosing the right type of animal for their specific needs and circumstances?
So that is our wish granter's role. And the wish granter is like the one-on-one aid that is matched up with the client. And they just talk and get to know the ESA seeker, get to know what their day-to-day life looks like, maybe their living arrangements, just stuff like that. Because, if they're never home, maybe like a fish is the best option. Like if they are working constantly, or if they love being outside and walking all the time, like a more active dog is probably great for them. If they are home a lot, but they don't really get outside much, and they don't have a yard or anything, like maybe a cat's great. It's just getting to know like your living scenario and your day-to-day life, and then matching that up with an animal whose needs would best suit with that.
That's nice. Instead of like all of the people that went and got dogs at the very beginning of COVID, there was like a run on shelters. And then sadly, when people returned to work in that life that they had prior to COVID, those shelters filled up with some of those same dogs back because people's lifestyle shifted.
Yeah.
So you don't want that to happen with an ESA. You want the right.
Especially, Patrick was the biggest animal supporter, and we would not want to do those animals wrong.
Oh, do you want to tell me a little bit about Patrick?
Of course, I always love to. So Patrick, obviously, everyone always hears about how he loves animals, but he also was just such a determined individual, extremely passionate about every single thing he was into, like the Packers, which was kind of intense because we were from Chicago.
He was a fan. Oh, goodness.
And he wasn't just like a Packers fan, like he was a diehard Packers fan. Like every single thing he owned had a little green and gold on it.
In bear country. That's cool.
Yeah, I know. Very bold. He was hilarious. He was so funny, making me laugh when I was like really angry and sassy and bratty and didn't want to. But most importantly, the most caring individual and person I have ever encountered in my life. And I have him to thank for every aspect of him I see in myself, because I'm so grateful that I learned so much from him and the way too short years we had together. But he cared like no other about everyone.
That's awesome. Do you feel like, so Patrick, like the joy that he brought to others, did he have a hard time taking care of himself?
Oh, for sure. I think as struggling with self-care is very common among just young people and all people today, but especially those living with mental illness. I think that there were many days where self-care was just not in the cards for him. And that even came down to like the most basic needs that an individual needs. So.
Your organization also wants to work on removing the stigmas. Like Megs, tell me, that's what we're trying to do too here at Robbie's Hope. Like, what are the stigmas that you want to work on as a 19-year-old?
18, but I'm
sorry. Thank you.
I hate how stigmatized mental illness still is. Like, I don't understand why kids think that going to therapy isn't something everyone should be doing. Like, also just getting to college a couple weeks ago and like being surrounded by people I'm usually not surrounded by. So many people are always like, oh, I can't believe I have so much homework. Like, I'm going to kill myself. And I just like have to sit back and be like, oh my goodness. Like, some people just totally do not understand that, like, that's not okay to say. That's like saying, okay, I'm going to go get cancer and die. I have so much homework. Like, there's no difference between the two. Like, one is a mental illness and one is a physical illness. And like, I think that people don't understand how similar and how they should be treated. Like, physical and mental illnesses should be treated the same. And people don't understand that yet. And not even especially because adults for sure, different generation, but like the people I'm surrounded by, I don't want to be surrounded by that. And I don't want people struggling to be surrounded by that either, because we all deserve, everyone has mental health and we all deserve to take care of it. Just like you go and get a physical every year, like go to therapy every month, even if that's just your basic checkup. Like it's so wild to me that there's still such a stigma around mental illness. It's crazy.
How do you, like, in a situation like that, a new freshman and meeting people and how hard that is, and somewhat of a triggering experience,
Oh, for
triggering
sure.
comment to hear, how do you handle that? Like, I mean, for our listeners, like, that we all get triggered. What's your advice there?
I will be honest, that's something I've totally been struggling with lately and meant to bring up to my therapist this week, but forgot to. So last night, actually, someone made a comment about that, and I was like, don't joke about that. Again, I think that it's as easy as that. Just like if there's been so many comments since getting to college and just being surrounded by people who don't get you that have been so triggering to me. And I think that honestly, the best way to go about it, for me at least, everyone's different, but it's just like sillily, like, don't joke about that. Like, that's not funny. It's just as simple as that. Like implementing that in their brain that like, that's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's not funny. Like you could think of so many other jokes, really.
Right. It's so just like a natural, like, comeback for people. It's so fast that like
Yeah.
rolls off of people's tongues sometimes. And
It's
I
so
totally agree with you that we need to change it. I
yeah.
used to get super, super triggered at the first probably like 2 years, and I still get triggered on occasion when people use the word commit. I
Yeah,
do
I
not.
still do. It's weird. I don't know why, but
Yeah. And at first I felt like I was like, it was my mission. I had to fix it. Like I had to, if somebody said, oh, your son committed suicide, or just when we started to talk about suicide, use that word, that I would like have to educate them and have to change it.
yeah,
And then I kind of was like, okay, I need to show a little bit of grace. Like they didn't say that to trigger me,
yeah,
and they're uninformed. And if it's the appropriate situation to inform them of why commit is a word that we don't use with suicide, I take the time to do that in a graceful way, in a way to show them that I care and I'm not attacking them. But sometimes I just have to let it slide, because
yeah,
otherwise it takes too much energy from me, and it
yes,
puts me down a path of like negativity and just spirals pretty quickly.
yeah. That's why for sure some days I'm just like I don't have it in me today to acknowledge and like discuss this today. I just am gonna have to like in one ear out the other.
In one ear, out the other. Yeah, that's a good skill that a lot of us need to work on. And sometimes we're good at it and sometimes we're not.
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoy talking about breaking the stigma, because I think it's so, so important. And it's just part of educating, and how you talked about, like, we all have mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, we just think only people have mental illness, and that they are like the oddballs, versus we all have mental health.
Yeah.
Most of us can do a better job of taking care of our mental health.
Oh, totally. And like so many people have just little physical illnesses. Like I have POTS, for example, which is just like a small heart condition, but like I implement things into my day-to-day life, like having more sodium, because that's what I need to be healthy and at my best. So I don't understand why people don't just like go to therapy or do their affirmations and little bits of self-care in their day-to-day to like be at their best selves. You have to train and work that the same way you would with like your physical muscles. Like your brain deserves the same care.
Yeah, but we just don't live in a world where that's the norm. Like,
Yeah.
we don't teach young people that in high school, middle school. We teach about, what you look for, signs of a stroke, signs of a heart attack. But we don't look. I mean, it is that ludicrous. Like, but we don't talk about what your brain might look like if your brain is not well, just like your heart not being well. Did you learn that in high school or middle school?
Oh my gosh, no, not at all. And if I did, like, I don't remember it.
Yeah. Because it's kind of uncomfortable and we need to teach it more than once. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't always stick the first time we hear something.
It's not a one-day lesson. Like, it
No.
deserves to be talked about, and like school should be bringing in people to speak because you learn the best hearing from people like you. And like reading a one-day textbook thing is not going to cut it.
No, no. Are you, as a new freshman, are you feeling like your campus is doing a good job of letting students know that there's resources and how to, be on campus and be healthy in all capacities and be a good student?
I'm definitely like scoping it out, trying to tell like, okay, so are they doing this? I think that it can always be better, but I think that they definitely like they're making an effort. And like we had our involvement fair 2 days ago. I like found all the mental health booths. I think there were only 2 of them, but I was like putting my name down and all. And I think that they're definitely making an effort, but there's always, always, always room for growth in everything and every person. So
yeah, how can we do that better as a society? How can we do that better for high schoolers and middle schoolers and for freshmen in college and all the different transitions that we experience in life?
mm-hmm.
I guess that leads to my next question. I love how sometimes that just happens on its own. How do you envision the future of mental health support evolving in terms of incorporating emotional support animals?
Oh my goodness. I don't think I've ever been asked this before. Wow. I haven't even thought about this. I don't know. I hope that, I think that everyone with a mental illness, it needs something out. Like they all have their own individual treatments, I guess, for lack of a better word. And for some people, therapy works and therapy's enough. But for some people, maybe therapy just doesn't work. And like that was the example for Patrick. It just didn't click. And that's okay. But animals did. So I think that having people understand there's more ways to treat mental illness than just therapy. Because also like therapy and having an ESA might be the best combination for treating your mental illness. But I think that just like getting that out there, I think that so many people don't understand ESAs or don't even know about them because honestly, I don't know if I really knew about ESAs before Patrick's passing. My knowledge has expanded so much for sure in this realm, but I think that it needs to be, I think that it will be definitely more widespread, just like general information and knowledge and accessible in the future.
Yeah, the accessible part, I imagine that's why it's so great that there's an organization like Paws for Patrick because there's different means and different limitations of being able to help yourself and even getting therapy for some people is, I often refer to therapy as a luxury for people because it's expensive. It's hard to obtain. I think out of COVID, it came, we made some improvements because now we have so much more telehealth, which is such a great thing.
Yeah. I totally lost my thought, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
If it comes back, you let me know. Oh, goodness. What goals do you hope to achieve in terms of public perception, maybe policy changes, or increased access to emotional support animals, particularly for young people in need?
I think that, I honestly don't know that much about policy changes. The one that I have been very, I guess, it's been significant to our organization was in the very beginning, in our first couple months is when airlines stopped allowing ESAs on flights. So that's definitely something that has made an impact. Because a majority of the people who are using our organization are those individuals in college, and they need to be able to get their ESA to and from their college and their home. So I hope that someday people see and understand that that's a necessity, and it's something that needs to be able to happen. I would say
I think,
that's
yeah, I do remember that now that you say that. And I think some of it comes from like people abusing the systems that were there and like these people abusing service dogs and just not
yeah.
like, how do we patrol that in a more like fair way?
Yeah, I honestly think it just comes down to the person, and like you need to be honest, and you need to care about the well-being of all the individuals in the world, and like the only way for it to continue, like for people to get what they need is if we're all taking care of each other and doing
Mm.
what we need to do for that to happen.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, Megs. Why is it so hard for our society?
So much of this sounds just so simple, and we're not anywhere close, but we're getting there
Do you
someday.
feel like we're making forward progress after now, like stepping into this like realm and this arena? Do you feel like we're making a little progress?
I think we for sure are. I sometimes think back to when I was in like fifth grade, which, oh gosh, that was a while ago. That's scary. But I had to like start going to see our social worker every week just because of things happening at home, and the school and my family was just like enforcing it. And I like lied to my friends about where I was. And I cannot fathom today like lying about going to talk to someone for help. I mean, it's so wild to me because now like I tell my friends like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited I have therapy today." And to think back like maybe 8 years ago, I don't know, um that I was lying about that, like that in itself is a difference I can see.
And now most of your friends, when you tell them that you're going to therapy, are like, how do they react?
Um, it's honestly it's been different everywhere I am. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm jealous." Yesterday, one of my friends, or 2 days ago, was like, "Oh, you therapy queens," and I was like, "Yeah, like self care queens, we're doing it." Um, but it's definitely a different reaction than I'd say people were probably getting years ago, because I think that people are starting to like take a chance on therapy and try it out, and like, oh, this is kind of helpful, like this is nice, or they're just understanding that like this is a good thing and this is something that everyone should be doing.
Yeah.
Not everyone's there yet.
No, I feel like your generation is changing it for us. Like you,
I hope so.
my generation, I'm 50. Like, of course, I have a lot of friends and whatnot that do see therapists and they feel fortunate and we openly talk about it. But your generation feels different. Like you're more okay with being who you are and stating it and not having to lie. And I think that's where we're going to be able to make some forward movement as a society.
Yeah.
Um, I hope. I don't know. Tend to follow young people's lead, as just because you guys you're wise. You're open.
I hope that we make a huge difference. I really do.
Oh goodness. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. When I was prepping for the conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really hard one because a sibling, losing your brother to suicide, you're 15 years old. It hasn't been that long. It's just been a few
Yeah.
years. And you and I know that this is going to be part of your life forever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess my heart just goes out to you and your family, but I also applaud you for what you're doing with Paws for Patrick and helping others. And if you're anything like me and my family, I think that's what keeps us going and shows us like there's nothing better than being able to help other people. And in return, you get to help yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And thank you so much. And you're doing amazing work too. I love everyone. I love and admire everyone who is making a difference and working to make a difference in the world of mental health. And it's so amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so we end Meg's every podcast with the same question, and this can relate to Paws for Patrick. It can relate to Meg's at her first few weeks at college, however you want this. Don't overthink it.
Okay.
Okay, so Megs, what does the world need to hear right now?
I'm just going to go with the first thing that popped in my head, and that's that you are loved and you are exactly where you need to be. I said that earlier, but I think that is such an important thing to tell yourself every day. It all works out. It always does. The sun always rises. It's one of my go-to sayings.
Awesome. Megs, thanks so much for being a guest today on Hopeful Conversations. And then to our listeners, until next time, remember, hold on, pain ends.